Welcome to Watching Westworld, the officially unofficial podcast for Westworld on HBO. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And we're here to do our traditional season preview for season 3. This is, I think, a big year for Westworld. They had a couple of missteps last year. I think everybody, everybody agrees.
It's also been much more than a year. It's been, we've had Westworld off the air for 2.5 years now.
Absolutely. And I hope that means they're doing a little retooling because, a lot of people had some problems with season 2, although I went back and I recently did a rewatch, and there are some really high highs in there too.
Yeah, I watched the second half of Westworld season 2 in its entirety, and I agree. There's still some things in there that bugged me, was it Angela? Is that Elon Musk's wife? Angela's seduction of the mercenary.
Right. Still
one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and immediately gave me Westworld PTSD. But holy shit, Kiksuya and the passenger, the final 2 episodes are just so good.
Delos gets a chef's kiss from me.
Going all the way down.
Dude, that episode is so good, fucking good.
It's all the way down, Jim.
But our plan here is to talk a little bit about our expectations, because I do have some for season 3. They've set up something about what this world could look like outside of the park. We're going to talk about the trailers a little bit, and I think we're going to give a quick recap of where everybody is at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. I think it might be folly to try and recap the entirety of season 2.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about some thematic threads that I think they set up in the finale and the lead up to the finale. Speaking of expectations, I like to set the listeners' expectations because we've got a fun season of coverage planned for you at baldmove.com. First up, we're going to have every Sunday night. I think previously had the Instant Take podcast, which is we watch the episode here, we take to the microphones and we give our 15-20 minute opinion, just kind of brief discussion. But something we've innovated since last season of Westworld is the Instant Talk version, which is as soon as we get done in the Instant Take, we go to the YouTube chat system and we interact with people, take questions live, and do another 15, 20 or however long people want to go. Instant Take is free for everybody. Instant Talk is exclusively for club members. If you want to listen to our extended analysis and ask a question yourself, air a theory that you're coming up with on the fly, we'd love to see you on the Instant Talk. So that's on Sunday night, immediately after the episode airs on the East Coast. Then we have I will be doing a written review, which is something new that we're doing this year. I'm aiming to have that out by the next day at the latest. I'm going to mostly have it out the night of, but I could see if it's if it's another hour and a half episode and we go 45 minutes to an hour on Instant Talk.
And it's a noodle baker of an episode.
And I got to get up at 5 to take my kid to school the next day. It might be the next morning. But then we're going to have our main show on Tuesdays, just like always, where we have full feedback, full recap coverage, all that kind of stuff. So one other thing before we get to the content that you guys are wanting to hear is just a meta thing. It would really help us out if you would do an audience survey. It's it's just 4 or 5 questions, audience demographics. It's at westworld.baldmove.com, and it'll help us better target ads and support Bald Move. So if you're not a club member, you've never rated or review us, if you want to help us out, regardless of your present level of support, it would really help us out if you took a minute out of your time to go to westworld.baldmove.com and take a quick survey. How old you are, that kind of stuff. Education levels is really basic
shoe
stuff.
Size.
Completely anonymous. It's just for us to better target our ads and attract advertisers. Yeah. All right. All that shit out of the way. Let's talk Westworld season 3.
Let's talk Westworld season 2.
Okay.
I just want to do a quick recap for the characters we've got, to let everybody know where they ended up last season.
Okay.
And sort of use that as a jumping off point for season 3.
Okay.
So let's talk pretty quick about these. Bernard was shot by Dolores in Charlotte's body, but then he was recreated by Dolores in Ford's sanctuary in the real world, which I'm just going to refer to as the sanctuary from now on. Mm-hmm. And he seems to be hell-bent on stopping Dolores from killing all humans, which she wants to do.
And crucially, the thing we found out last season was that Bernard was a previously recreated Arnold.
Yes. That
Dolores on the fly decided to improve in a few key areas. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that came out in the finale that I don't know if I forgot or I didn't pick that up. But this is not a high fidelity copy of Arnold. It's an improved copy of Arnold, and improved in terms of...
With a little bit of Ford in there, too.
A little bit of Ford into the mix, yeah.
It's a milieu of stuff at this point.
Bernard Fordle is his new mashup name.
How about Halores?
Halores?
Because Dolores was shot dead by Bernard for trying to destroy the Valley Beyond, and then he
the entire
decided,
human race.
Oops, that was a mistake. Instead, I need to put her into Charlotte's body so she can get out of the park. And then when she got out of the park, she swapped back into her own body in the sanctuary. So that's kind of where she's at right now.
Yes.
She is just hell-bent on destroying every bit of humanity. Just watching their world burn.
Yeah.
And I think that's right where we're going to pick off. And
that's what's so interesting about her character is that she had... The experiences of last season changed her, too. Like, Bernard came a little bit closer to Dolores by the end when he saw the treachery and short-sighted stupidity of humans. Kind of through his interactions with Elsie. And Dolores, for her part, softened a little bit on her stance. She decided to save all the hosts that were in the Valley Beyond. That was in the paradise. She beamed them off to some location unknown, and she brought Bernard along with her, as almost like as if Magneto realized he needed a Professor X, like that. I don't get to make
temper her a little.
Yeah, I don't get to make all the decisions. Like, we have two competing ideologies. Let's see who wins. She brings Bernard to this future as an explicitly as a foil to her, which I thought was fascinating.
I think it was triggered by Teddy, who shot himself right in front of her because of the monster that she turned him into,
the man she loved,
in an effort to get him to follow her. Yeah, so there's a lot going on with Dolores. And then we go to Maeve, who was shot a bunch by humans while helping her daughter escape to the Valley Beyond. That, I think, is the last time we really see her. Maybe we see her body sort of at the exit point.
We do see her body looking the worse for wear at the exfiltration point or the rally point or wherever they're taking people off the beach.
Yeah. So we don't really know her status, though. We'll talk about her when we get to the trailer stuff.
And she's truly a rogue presence, because you've got Bernard and Dolores, which are two sides of a opposing ideology, where Maeve is explicitly something Ford created. Like, that's his daughter. That's his plan. And I think it's proceeding without Dolores or Bernard having any idea what it is that she wants or what she's supposed to do.
And she was, in season 2, a force sort of directly opposed to Dolores' philosophy of kill all humans, right? She saw a separate path, and I think she saw that through Lee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as Lee changed, she changed. And
she also is, I think, the most... In terms of, like, at least inside Westworld, she was the most powerful entity.
I think so.
Like, she's Neo in the Matrix.
It's like super user access to everything.
Yeah, in a way that, like, Dolores is very physically tough and, a very good combatant, but she couldn't, like, just mind control things at a whim. So I'm interested to see, number one, how did Maeve's marble get off the island or off the Westworld? Like you said, it's the last we saw is in a corpse. Are they going to have like a flashback that shows how this happened or what?
Yeah, you're talking about, we see her in the trailer for season 3.
Yeah, so. She obviously, her body is there, but is it like, because I don't think Ford's plan, whatever he had with Maeve escaping, I don't think that's going to end either. There's got to be something that he's thought of. But that's the real thing I'm curious is, like, what is Maeve trying to do? Because I know what Bernard's trying to do. I know what Dolores is trying to do. Is Maeve the middle path, the middle way?
I don't know. Could be. Let's talk about William real quick. So I want to say he found out he's a host, but that scene, which if you didn't stay to the credits, past the credits of last season's finale, you should probably go watch that because it's super important. There's a very far future where William is being tested for fidelity. So at that point, he is at least one of these two things, a host or a simulated version of himself inside of a system. Probably a host because they're testing him for fidelity. Yeah,
and his host daughter says Emily, that you're not in the machine, you're not in the simulation, you're in the real world.
Do I believe her? I don't know.
But why would she? I guess why would she lie? I guess why would she tell the truth?
Yeah, why would she tell the truth?
Yeah, you're right. This is a conversation that goes around and around.
Right. So we don't really know the status of William. Like, He was shot and he passed out in the desert. And, well, he wasn't even shot. He blew his hand off by trying to shoot Dolores with a sabotaged gun. And he just kind of keeled over in the desert as what I think is a human. I think at that point, he's probably a human.
And I think he, at some point, got up and walked into the forge cradle area, too.
He may have, yeah.
But then it gets dicey because we know there's a couple things that we know is true. I think all of the guest data is dead, unless Dolores smuggled it off in either that satellite transmission or the batch of marbles, because we also know that the host data can fit somewhat uncomfortably in a single marble, because that's where it was in Abernathy's head for the majority of last season.
Right. So,
and I mean, there's great value to having that guest data. Like, those are the most powerful people in the world. She's got a mental map of. Destroying it could be foolish, but it's not there for the park to reconstitute. So it begs the question of, like, who created this William simulation or synthetic William in the future? Yeah, it almost has to be Dolores
and his daughter, who created her as well.
It's true, because we also Dolores said that she passed her body on the trail. I don't think she would lie, and I think she would know if she was not dead. So yeah. One of my questions is Dolores recreating William to see, because one of the things, there's a couple ideas. We know that, like, with the Jim Delos construct, all of his life paths led to this one moment where he betrays his son. Yeah. And there's a thought that, like, all of the William moments, like, that they're running a simulation to find out where he goes wrong and kills his daughter. I wonder if there's going to be something where Maeve is trying to understand where she went wrong with regards to, like, Teddy. Like, she understands that her worldview has gone wrong. Dolores, I'm sorry. Dolores is trying to understand where she went wrong, and she's using the lens of William to figure that out.
Yeah, could be.
Because she's gone dark. She didn't used to be this hard, cruel, genocidal being.
No, I mean, she's opposed to everyone in the park and outside of the park.
She's a robot supremacist.
Absolutely. And everyone is telling her she's wrong about that.
And she's got very good reasons to be that way.
Absolutely, she does.
Yes. She's very like Magneto, and that, like, his methods are extreme, but, And
I want to talk about that later on when we sort of get to the end. Like, there's a lot to talk about Dolores. So then moving on to Kichida, he went off into the Valley Beyond and was reunited with his wife. It was a nice moment.
But we have no idea where all the other hosts are in the Valley Beyond. We don't know where they were beamed off.
It was beamed somewhere, and that's one of my major questions for season 3 that I would like an answer to is, where did they go that she thinks they would be safe from humanity forever? Yeah, is kind of what she says. Yeah. Where would that be?
I will say that I don't know how many people agree with me, but, like, I'm fine with those hosts just being in heaven. Like, if that's like the robot idea of heaven,
space, and just like
just some remote Titan outpost, or like the idea that, like, she just beams this into space, like that data is out there.
Yeah, it's like a Voyager probe or something, right? Like going out and just like having this record of humanity on it. Right. This could be just a record of hosts, and if anybody happens to pick it up,
But there's nice, some, like, if they just never address it, and it's just like, okay, these guys all went to robot heaven, then I'm fine with that.
And then we get to some more minor characters. Stubbs is an interesting case. Well, okay, so Felix and Sylvester are both alive. Yep. And they are helping to clean up the mess in the park. Yep.
And we know we think the park is still in operation because we see, like, Nazi World.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think Westworld might be out of commission for a while. They lost a lot of hosts. Yeah. But yeah, like a Nazi World in season 3 could be a thing. I don't like the term Nazi World. I really don't want to use that as the marker for this.
Well, it's world. Nazi World. What do you want to call
World War World?
World War II World,
name. Yeah. WW World. That's not confusing with Westworld at all.
No, huh?
Okay, let's talk about Stubbs real quick. He is alive. He let Charlotte / Dolores leave the park.
He's a host.
Knowing what she was. It's hinted that he could be a host. I don't know that I buy that he is a host necessarily. He just tips his hat that he knows Dolores is in Hale's body.
It's funny because I was reading some coverage and some speculation and watching some videos leading up to my rewatch, and I had been persuaded by these people, like everyone's treating it like it's a done deal that he's a host, but
I disagree.
I think he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. Like the strongest thing about him being a host is, well, you could consider that my, what primary directive or what's
my cornerstone, my prime directive,
primary drive or something like that.
Primary drive, yeah.
But he also says when Ford first hired me, which could be a false memory, it could be all kinds of different things. It could be his narrative, but
and hired could mean built.
Yeah.
But also like that being my primary drive could also just be a wink and a nod at a host.
Yeah, he's trying
because that's their term, right?
He's a human trying, like some of the others, to bridge the gap and be like, oh, I'm playing with the idea of treating you like an actual person instead of an object.
And the whole point of that interaction is to let her know that he knows who she is and what she is, and that he's going to let her go regardless. Like that's a way to do that, is to call his emotions a primary drive, right?
Right. Because Ford,
who knows?
Yeah.
There are some people who died last season. A lot of them, actually. Elsie shot to death, I think by Charlotte.
Yeah. Still Charlotte, not Dolores, yeah.
Okay. Because she wasn't morally flexible enough to work on the project.
Right.
Good call, Charlotte. I agree. Shannon Woodward probably not going to go along with it. Teddy's deady. He killed himself because Dolores turned as bad as us.
Teddy is alive in the Great Valley Beyond. Because Dolores pulled his marble and uploaded him by hand.
Did she?
Yeah, when she gives a speech about some of us, the best of us, as she's putting a marble into the container, and then we see Teddy in the Valley Beyond.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Teddy's not deady. He's alive.
Teddy's not deady, but he's in Robot Heaven.
Yeah, and who knows where Robot Heaven is. James Delos definitely died. He got incinerated after going all the way down now.
Yeah, and William pulled the funding from his project, so that's just done deal.
Clementine was used as a virus to try and eliminate all of the hosts, but she was shot dead by Armistice. Still kind of worked, but she's not probably going to be back.
Depends on
that's why I say probably.
Yeah, there's five marbles rolling around in Dolores' sack.
Yeah.
Who are those marbles?
I wish one of them was our next character, Lee. Unfortunately, I think he's gone for good. He gave some really ridiculous speech that he wrote for Hector and kind of bought them time to escape. Yeah. While delivering it and shooting at humans and got gunned down.
I thought someone said that he was in one of the trailers. I guess it could be a flashback.
Huh.
But, we saw him get shot and it looked like he took a lot of rounds, but also this is the future. But it was
off screen.
And it's the future where you have the crazy medical technology. It seems like a lot of diseases and death they've established are no longer a concern in this world.
Yeah. We have Angela, who got blowed up in the cradle in one of the worst all-time Westworld scenes. You got Logan, who overdosed, and that's kind of, we talked about him.
He was the part construct or the cradle construct.
Yeah, he was running the Forge, I guess, as a simulation.
The Forge, yes.
Yeah, which turned into the Valley Beyond. It's a weird thing.
They repurposed it.
Armistice and Hector both got torn apart and or shot when they were trying to get Maeve's daughter to the Valley Beyond.
And I would like for them to stick around because they're awesome, but on the other hand, I don't know why Dolores would take their marbles out of anyone that she could choose.
Yeah, she has no connection to them.
Unless it's like a sense of fairness. Like, I've got 2 marbles for your side and 2 marbles for my side, maybe. Because Bernard's one of the marbles, right?
Yes, Bernard has to be one of the marbles. One of the pearls, whatever we're calling them. Because he gets reconstructed once they get to the sanctuary, and it seems to actually be Bernard, not somebody in Bernard's body.
She could have just rebuilt him from memory, though, because what she literally
did. That the first time, so she could have.
So he's not a marble.
Well, he doesn't have to be a marble.
Doesn't have to be a marble. Yeah.
Then there's the question of Charlotte, which I think Charlotte was killed, and her body was used as a vehicle for Dolores. Her
reconstructed body.
Rebuilt body. I don't think Charlotte, her consciousness is going to be back in the next season, though we do see Tessa Thompson in the trailer. So we know that Charlotte's husk, her body will be back in some form.
Yeah, and she's a high-ranking member of the Delos Corporation, so
super useful.
Very useful having
in
an
your
inside
war against the
woman.
humans. Yeah, so the last character, Emily, I think we talked about, she's dead, most likely. That's William's daughter, if you didn't know.
Did we talk about Ford?
Yeah, I mean, Ford's dead.
Ford, but he's got... Bernard is able to reconstruct a facsimile of him, which in this world is almost as good as the real thing.
I guess.
Then there's also a fragment. The one surviving fragment of the Ford program is also in Maeve. Because he kisses her on the
Bernard
forehead.
delivers that message to her.
Yeah. So there is a Ford persona floating around there as well.
Yeah. And how much of that is just like a WWFD, like Bernard knowing what Ford would do in a situation and that being visually represented by Ford. I can't say represented. And how much of that is like an actual piece of Ford in his head still. All up in the air. Who knows? So that's kind of everybody that I wanted to catch up on.
Can we talk about some expectations?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go next.
Because a lot of people, I'm back on Twitter, and a lot of people are asking like how I felt about Westworld season 3, and because we had some problems with season 2. No, season 3. How I'm feeling about it? Like, am I excited about it?
Okay.
And I say yes, I am excited about it because number one, the trailers look sick.
Yeah.
Like getting out of Westworld is a huge deal. Like there are so many more story possibilities. It's so inherently more intrinsically more interesting.
The thing I wanted to see from Maeve when she turns around on that train when she's about to get out, I'm like, fuck, there goes our chance at an awesome season 2.
Yes. And since the Westworld season 2, I have seen another show that had a problematic sophomore year, Mr. Robot, recover and end beautifully. And I think there's actually a lot of similarities between what they were doing on Mr. Robot, where it's clear that Sam Esmail had a very clear idea of how he wanted to start and how he wanted to begin, but there was a rough transition to go from the F Society hacker plot to the thing that he actually wanted to tell. And I felt like there's a similar thing here with Nolan and Joy struggling, where they had the amazing season 1 of Westworld and how tightly it was, but you got to get the robots out of Westworld. And that is going to require, especially with all the things that they want to establish, with all the different loyalties and all the different, there was probably 4 or 5 episodes worth of stuff there, but not enough for a 10 episode season. Similarly to Mr. Robot, their season 2, there was about 5 or 6 episodes worth of plot, maybe not enough for a 13 episode season, which means there's a lot of padding, there's a lot of going around in circles, there's a lot of being clever for clever's sake to kind of distract from the other problems of not having enough plot to go around. Mr. Robot got done with that in season 2 and then was consistently high throughout the rest of its run and ended beautifully. I think there's a lot to say that this getting out of Westworld was the rough transition. And what do you do? Like maybe the answer should have been like a 2-part 4-hour miniseries to get the robots out of Westworld, but HBO wants 10 episodes, so they deliver 10 episodes. I'm hoping that we're going to see a similar. Now they're on to the story that they want to tell till the end of the story. How the robots either integrate into society, defeat society, etc. The human condition, they're ready to tell the story, and there's going to be no need to be as heavily obfuscated. Although, to the extent that this show is still a mystery box, having the entire world to play around with in that box is going to be a lot more story possibilities than being stuck in a fucking park.
I agree. Season 2 felt claustrophobic. It felt like they had this theme that they could have explored anywhere, but they wanted to get to these other 2 parts of the park. And they made the decision at the end of season 1 to keep Maeve inside the park. And so they really didn't have a way to get them off of the island,
Yeah, very limited ways to go into like William's backstory and Dalos's backstory, but
yeah. And those were some of my favorite parts when we got away from the I don't know. They had the strong theme of free will, which I appreciated, but also I think got a little much at times. And maybe I would have appreciated a broader range of thought and discussion in season 2. But the Delos stuff was a fresh breath of air. And I'm hoping that season 3's going into the real world, seeing what the human population actually looks like and sort of having to reckon with that. Mm-hmm. Because in my opinion, Dolores has seen the worst of humanity. Yeah. Dolores has seen the rich assholes who come to this park to fuck and kill and tear things up.
Even the good ones can be corrupted by the absolute power that they display.
Yeah, even the good ones have always had that stain, right? Yeah. They've always been bad at the core. That's the thing. She's seen the worst of humanity. What's she going to think when she sees some of the better parts of humanity?
And when she gets out and sees that, this is something where it seems like they're really going to start talking about, class consciousness. You get out of the park and you meet a guy like Aaron Paul, who I don't know whether he's supposed to be a robot or not, but if he's just a worker, if he's just a low-level worker, guys working construction or whatever, I mean, a lot of people can identify with the idea that if you're in a service economy gig, you essentially are servicing people that are wealthier and more well-connected and higher up on the totem than you are.
They might not try to fuck you. It's
technically illegal to fuck you and enslave you, but yet that happens and people are trafficked. And I think Dolores will get outside and see not only are there people that are good and are willing to do it just for the sake of their own code but she's also going to see a lot of these supposedly free godlike humans that are in the position of hosts, just as bad. Like I said, you can absolutely find people in this world that are treated like objects, just like the robots in Westworld. They're used up.
That's my hope. Those are my expectations for season 3, but I'm not sure they line up with Nolan and Joy's desires for the story in season 3. We'll talk about this later, but their view of humanity and my view of humanity might differ.
Let's talk about that actually now, since we're on it, because that's my thing. What is something I talked a lot on the podcast last season is, what is the moral philosophy? What are they trying to say about the human condition? Because almost so far it's been all bad.
Yeah, and it's been all bad. I don't think people are all bad, but it's also been this one of humans are simple and stupid, and humans are the robots.
Cannot change.
Right. And I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that I strongly disagree. I'm not sure I'm well read enough to have a foundation to argue from.
Right.
But my general feeling on humanity is there are good people and there are bad people, and so far Westworld has ignored the good in humanity. Basically entirely.
Yeah.
You've got Lee, who turns better, right? And you've got Felix, who's kind of not trying to murder Maeve actively.
Right. Yeah. Sympathetic to the play.
There are a couple of people in there, but they're all sidelined. They're all minor players, and none of them have an effect. I don't know. Lee has an effect on Maeve. But certainly Dolores hasn't seen that part of the humans yet.
Yeah, and I'm actually open to the idea that we humans are purely deterministic creatures. We're going to do the things we're going to do laid down from the start of the Big Bang. And it seems like Westworld's one of their theses. We can create a form of life that, even if we are purely deterministic, and again, I'm not sure how I believe in, I'm certainly open to a show telling us that, but we could actually create a form of life that might be different from us.
I don't understand how the hosts would differ from us in that regard.
The only thing I can think of is because they have code that's not just a random chemical process happening. You can program a host to step outside and take in new information and act in ways that they're not forced to, compelled by biology.
But that I don't know, that assumes that there's something fundamentally different about coding and chemical reactions.
I don't know that that's entirely ones true. And zeros versus whatever the fuck a neural chemical pathway is.
I think we don't understand it as well.
Agreed.
But I don't think there's a hugely fundamental difference between the two.
I mean, maybe, but it's a great sci-fi.
It is.
What if? We are analog, they are digital. They actually might be more free because they can separate those things.
Yeah,
but
they could fix a bug just by going in and fixing it.
Yeah. And
realizing it's there and fixing it.
Yeah, where they're not like caught by all the traumas. And I think that's a fundamentally interesting concept. And it's a dark concept that if the thesis of the show is we're fucked as humans, the only thing we can do is create our successors. But it'd be super interesting in like a dystopian sci-fi kind of standpoint.
One of my other expectations for this season, when I look at season 2, I see the robots using might. It's a contest of might between host and humans. You look at them having to fight their way to the exit, essentially, and they have to sneak through it, but they weren't super clever about it, and they only really got through because they had somebody on their side. The fact that there might be only 5 of these hosts to escape versus the entire might of the human race means that is not an option once they get to the real world. And this season should probably be more about the intellectual battle between the two.
I think there's also going to be the idea of offspring. Like, I think that one of these AIs is going to create a brand new thing, you know. There's also the idea that there's robots outside that are not sentient, and the idea that maybe these advanced robots can infect them with, you know, you see these hulking security robots that are that you could take those over, use them as allies. I think that's kind of a cool idea too.
I think there's just going to be a lot more intrigue from a factional standpoint.
No,
here, right?
You certainly in the big speech to Dolores, her big "I'm Magneto, you're Professor X" speech, she acknowledged that like this is very dangerous, very small chance of either of us succeeding. It's most likely we'll both die. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. They're definitely this is going to be a very paranoid, you know, different type of claustrophobic season, because it's just the paranoia with anyone can be anything, and who do you trust? And, you know, especially Bernard seems like it's got the most dangerous path. Like, you know, Dolores just wants to undermine humanity. Bernard wants to bring him along. Yeah. So he's going to have to trust humans. And the second he trusts them, he's vulnerable to being betrayed. The other thing I think is interesting is they make a point, where when they're talking about Jim Delos and his son, Logan, he talks about like they had flawless simulations, complete fidelity within the forge, within the cradle. Yeah. And as soon as they pressed them in the flesh, the simulations went awry. These new robots, with the exception of like Dolores, who's got the metal endoskeleton, although I don't know if is Dolores the classic chassis?
I would assume she doesn't anymore. I don't think Dolores is going to have that.
I wonder if that's part of it, is like that, like these were perfect beings, but they're pressed into this synthetic flesh, and now they're going to have some of the same pitfalls that we do. I know they still have a positronic brain or whatever the fuck that marble is, but there's something it just really like hit me between the eyes when Logan said, you know, our simulations were flawless and we had all this fidelity, and then we pressed them into the flesh and it went tits up. You know, like that's exact same process that the robots are doing. Like Jim Delos was exactly the same as a host, except for he started as a guest simulation. So like, why would Dolores be any different? Are we going to start seeing her like degenerate and go crazy?
I guess because she's never been a human. I think that's the fundamental difference, right? Because all of the hosts in the park were totally fine. They didn't lose their minds until Bernard started fucking with them.
But they also got reset all the time. You know, like they were killed and
except for Akicha, who spent 10 years in the wilderness, you know, having not been updated since an alpha.
But he was one of the Obsidian Erector set versions, right?
He probably had to be,
if he hadn't been updated since the alpha stages. So like, there's my cheat for him. Yeah, my Achitica.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Yeah. We could also be in for an unglamorous season 3 if we got to see a lot of scenes of them doing their own laundry at the sanctuary and like getting a job to earn the money for the property tax on the sanctuary.
Gotta cut their hair, their nails.
Yeah, it could be real unglamorous.
Synthetic shits. Here's the other thing that I need to know.
Okay.
Early in the season, or everything we said that's good about this could be undermined. I need to understand what can kill a woke host. Because one of the things that robbed a lot of the tension of the last season, and they kind of got back in the finale, is what does it mean to die? Yeah. And what can kill you? Like, it seems like Dolores could ignore any amount of damage, Maeve couldn't, like she can take bullets and she can, walk around with gaping holes in her neck and stuff, but then she takes a few more bullets and she's dead. I need to kind of know in rough order of magnitude kind of way what can kill these hosts that are not like slaves to the Westworld system. Because otherwise, every time they get in a fight, I'll never know who wins and who loses and who's really out of commission. They have to be able to communicate to us. And so far, they've done the opposite. There's so many ways you can live, so many ways you can survive. Even if you get your head blown, like I thought shot to the skull was death, but then she somehow got Teddy's marble and uploaded him into robot heaven.
Yeah.
So like
that's one of the problems with the show. When you're doing such a timey-wimey thing already, and you've got so many intricate twists and turns,
and bodies are infinitely
to compound that with not understanding what physically is happening.
Yeah. And even if you're dead and your marble's gone, if a robot knows you intimately enough, they can still bring you back just from their perfect memories.
Right.
And simulate you with a high enough fidelity. So like I think that is actually, it's one of the strengths of the show. It's one of the things that makes it such an interesting puzzle box, but it's also something that's going to be very frustrating and feel like the writers just do whatever the fuck they want from week to week rather than having actual stakes. Because one of the reasons the action last season was bad, I think it was staged poorly, but also like what the fuck are the stakes?
Well, that's the thing. It feels like a tool in the toolbox that they were playing with without realizing it was a tool.
Yeah.
It was something that they were using but didn't realize they were using.
Which makes sense as a transition year. They only had a year to work on it. Now they've had 2.5, and it's no longer a transition. They should have, hopefully, an end in mind that they're going for. So I just that's something like if we're a third of the way through the season and I'm still like, fuck, Maeve took a katana through the head. Is she dead or is she alive? I don't know. Yeah. That's going to be a real problem.
I don't know how you clear that up, because you're right with that perfect memory. How do you ever say any host is dead?
Simulations start failing when they're pressed in the flesh. They lost that ability. Because that's if they can fix this by having hosts not being able to back themselves up for a significant portion of this season.
Yeah, which they did in season 2.
Right. For very brief until they establish that they can, if they know a host well enough or a guest well enough, they can just reconstruct them.
Yeah. And I guess that's another big question I have that I don't necessarily absolutely need an answer to, but where did they send the Valley Beyond? Because that has a collection of data that could be immensely valuable to the hosts, right?
Yeah.
It has all the data on the humans, which if you're trying to take over the human world, knowing those people inside and out, perhaps being able to recreate versions of them and do an old switcheroo, like they're probably going to do with Charlotte, that could be super valuable.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm skeptical that the guest data has been deleted.
Yeah.
It's because I understand why. Actually, I don't. I understand why Dolores was dead set on doing it, but it's such a huge advantage.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you believe what Logan said, that these humans were all very simple, 12,000 lines of code, maybe she literally because she was reading a bunch of those books, maybe she sees some kind of like greater unified, because it seems like they're also kind of like there's some kind of grand unified human theory. Yeah. But that was only the 0.1%, right, who we kind of suspect at the very least.
Oh, yeah. She read a few of those books, and those 4 million books were the assholes of the universe.
Yeah, they're the people that can afford to go to Westworld and choose to go to Westworld and shoot and rape and pillage and kill. Yeah. So, like, it's a self-selecting asshole, Venn diagram of humanity. So you
want to talk more in depth about the trailers?
No, because I think they're awesome, and they do a good job of showing what the possibilities of life outside the park. But
I have some stuff I'm going to talk about, whether you want to or not.
I want to. I just I was at a loss to say like something in depth about them.
So in the trailer, one of these trailers for season 3, Maeve is tasked with tracking down and destroying Dolores.
Yes.
By some, I've heard he's a billionaire. This Vincent Cassel is playing this guy.
He's the fox from like Ocean's 12.
Yeah, you've seen him in a few things.
Yeah.
French actor. And I know that they had their disagreements on how to pursue freedom, but do you think Maeve would actually go and hunt down and kill Dolores? Is there maybe a threshold of chaos that she could cause that would force Maeve into that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Like, because like if Maeve loved Clementine, but Clementine became the destroyer, and Maeve had no problems with bringing her down. And I think that it's very easy to see a world in which Dolores becomes the destroyer. She's the pale horse riding to destroy all of humanity, if not humanity and synthetic kind. And Maeve would step in front of that runaway freight train. Now,
yeah.
Then what happens? Who knows? But yeah, I think so. What do you think?
They fight with katanas on a bridge.
Yeah, and somebody loses an arm, apparently.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think like it's bizarre, but Lee has somehow become a transcendent, more important character than he ever set out to be, than the map pisser you thought he'd end up being.
Yeah, he thought he peaked when he invented the Ouroboros.
Right.
But nah, he actually got some character.
Yeah, and he instilled a certain understanding of humanity into Maeve, that we're not all bad. And so, yeah, I could definitely see her wanting to go out there and maybe being driven to sort of seeing a necessity in putting Dolores down, if it came to that. There's also some shots of William in this, and he says his new mission is to save the fucking world. A host William? A human William who actually made it? He's bloody. He's very bloody in those shots.
So what's your appetite for... William is several hundred years in the future. Earth has been destroyed by the robot apocalypse, and he is like, there's going to be a third act of Westworld where the synthetic humans try to retake the world from the purely synthetic. Humanity is on the ropes. There's a few because I guess you'd still consider William a human. He's not a host. He was a guest.
Human turned into a host.
So then he, especially if Dolores kept all that human data.
Right, he could pull some people
that'd be
out.
really dark if you reconstructed the human race only from the 4 million most wealthy, diabolic individuals of the world.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. That would be kind of wild, but
that's
I wonder
something I might fight against.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what they're getting at with that. What do you think?
Yeah, that could be really cool, especially if we figure out what happened to those human consciousnesses. It'd be cool to see Logan back actually, in some form of flesh. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that could be really, really cool with that. And conceptually, this show is wide open, I think.
Yeah. Getting out into the real world is going to be just such a huge... In fact, I guess that's another thing I want to talk about is why are we going to Nazi world? What the fuck?
Where I was going.
What Maeve's daughter is saved. What could possibly be worth going back into this goddamn meat grinder for one of these robots?
I don't know. I feel like they came up... So there's a line somewhere in the first 2 seasons where they say that there are 6 parks, and we've seen now 3 of them, right? Shogun World, Westworld, and the Raj.
Raj World, yeah.
I just feel like they want to show you all these parks. I think this might be a huge mistake, not only because this is a hugely sensitive issue, especially given what we're going through today in our political climate.
This is going to air out of piece with David Simon's new American Nazi...
Yeah, the War for America,
something like that.
Fight for America.
What if Charles Lindbergh was a Nazi and was the president?
It's a tricky thing to do well.
Sure.
Which, they do tricky stuff pretty well in the show. But at the same time, I don't know that I want to see a reskinned version of Westworld as Nazi World. And Lee made it pretty clear that that's all he did is he copied the narratives of all of these parks from Westworld. So what's the value of going there?
I don't know, and especially what's the value of going there, and what's the value of Maeve going there, and could it be a flashback? Because we talked about, they've already got multiple timelines. You've got the current timeline with Dolores and Maeve and Bernard fucking around in the real world with Aaron Paul.
Yeah,
but you've also got this indeterminate time in the future with William. So you've already got 2 timelines. If they go with the flashback, why would, if it's really would it be interesting to go back and see an alternate version of Maeve where she was fucking around as a host in Nazi world? Like, I just don't know. It just feels it feels like going backwards.
I can't imagine it would inform anything else of her character. Don't we know so much about her already?
Yeah.
To take her back in time and do like a flashback to a Nazi world doesn't seem like a valuable thing.
But it could be fun. Like, it's the thing is Westworld going away from the
everyone who ever went to Nazi world.
What I mean by that is, like,
it could be fun. Who knows?
Westworld is going to be smaller in one way, and that they're in the real world now, and so you can't play with some of these Western motifs and some of this other melodrama. That's off the limits now, and just the basic duality and the delusion of the host is not something you can play with anymore. Found a way to get in a park, and they find a way to make that compelling. It is an interesting change of pace, just like the Kitsuya episode was a nice visual change of pace. The Samurai World, not entirely successful, but it was cool from a look and feel and like mythology sense to get away from that from an episode, a visual interest sense. So, and
it was nice to let us know, these are reskinned versions of the same park. I think they did a great job on that.
Sure, yeah, you literally have all the same.
Right, all the same characters, all the same narratives. It's just, reskinned. So I mean, I guess that's the hope I have for it, is that they're going to be able to do something more interesting than just another reskinned park. And who knows, depending on the state of the real world.
2 reskinned parks.
2?
You're gonna have
what would the other one be?
Jurassic World.
That'd be a good
dinosaurs.
one.
Yeah. And then medieval
especially
times.
with the Michael Crichton connection.
Medieval times. And it's not a medieval world. It's literally just an accurate simulation of Friday night at medieval times.
Yep.
You got the beef buffet. You got the jousting.
You've got Janine Garofalo telling you we only have Pepsi.
Yep. And you can, if the meat's undercooked, you can fucking punch the waiter or waitress out. You can rape a horse in the joust. You can do what it's like medieval times, except for there's no rules.
I thought you weren't watching Better Call Saul. Okay, that's about all I've got for the trailer stuff.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk about some.
We do see stubs again. Yeah. I guess that's maybe important.
Yeah. But just a couple things. If you didn't know, there's actually several secret trailers inside the real trailers. You can find all those on YouTube if you want. In fact, I'll link them all in the show notes. Also, our buddy Kim Renfro over at on The Insider has done an amazing job over the years compiling an exhaustive timeline. So if you were as confused as we were by like season 1 and season 2 and when did things happen and how these timelines were interwoven, interwove.
Yeah,
interwove. Yeah, let's
interwooved.
Yeah, let's go back and control C, control V that. I'm going to link to the ongoing. It doesn't look like they've updated it since season 2. I know they probably will, but I'm going to link the current copy of that because it's really, especially if you're doing a rewatch or if you just want to like browse through the season 2 timeline. It very well illustrates like when things happen, who did what, and where we're at the end of it. And I'm sure it's going to be a good resource going forward into the future. So those are the things. We've got one more resource for you, Westworld at baldmove.com. If you've got a take, if you've got a theory, we're pretty tough on theories here. We like having evidence. We more than just wouldn't it be cool if?
Right.
But if you got one of those, send it into Westworld at baldmove.com and we might consider it on our full Tuesday podcast coverage. But otherwise, we hope to see everyone here Sunday night, right after the episode for the Instant Talk. All you club members, club.baldmove.com. Please stick around for the Instant Talk podcast. Did I get those wrong? We got Instant Take and then Instant Talk. Hope to see everybody there live on Sunday, and then we'll be back for the main event on Tuesday. Until then, I'm your host, A.Ron.
And I'm also a host, Jim.
Actual robot, Jim. See you guys later.